Hello everyone, and welcome back to Katawa Shoujo. I am your host, WampaOnRoids. And last time, we promised to go to a party. And Akira and Lily and probably Hanako will be there. And you know what happens when Akira's place is in a party happens? That's right, she's probably gonna give us alcohol. She's not a very good role model. That's okay. Being a good role model and being a fun one aren't necessarily the same. Walking up the now slightly familiar corridor of the girls' dormitories, I can hear the faint sound of laughter coming from up ahead. It doesn't take long to identify the source as Lily's room, though the deep timbre, I forget that timbre is spelled with an I, of the female voice unmistakably belongs to her, not her, but to her sister. I wrap my knuckles. I think that was more than 3 because I hadn't read that far. On the door with the usual 3 light taps, my hand barely retreating as the door swings open. Hey, Hisao. Hey. Hello, Lily. Hanako. Oh, hey. We get to see this sprite again. Hanako looks up tentatively, her hands buried in her oversized pink gown. From her side, Lily turns sideways towards the direction of my voice and smiles. It would be a flagrant lie to say I dislike the sight of her in those pajamas. I like it, however, I like the sight of her out of those pajamas a little bit more. I catch Akira giving me a sidelong look with a knowing grin, to which I reply with a sharp glare. She knows. She takes the hint, shrugs, and walks back to the low table in the center of the room. As I go to join her, Lily gives me a nod of greeting and starts pouring me a cup of tea. It's nice to see you again, Hanako. You've been getting around recently. You think getting around recently makes it sound like she's been banging people. Maybe in a different save file, boys. Ooh. Lily wears a look of concentration as the light brown liquid, carefully measured by her finger as always, flows from the teapot into the cup. It seems Hanako has taken up helping one of the people in your class with the newspaper club. Naomi, I think? Hanako gives an affirmative nod. Even after spending about 2 months in the class, I still have trouble remembering the names of those students I rarely talk with and don't even have individualized sprites. It takes me a few mental contortions to connect the name with a face, but I eventually remember that as the girl that sits beside Hanako at the back of the class. Do you remember who that is? I don't. Naomi Inoue. That's a lot of vowels in a row. Inoue. A fairly average looking girl except for her bleached blonde hair. Given her upbeat and straightforward personality, Naomi may have seen an opening to poach Hanako for her club when she inquired about joining one. Either way, it's nice to see Hanako broadening her horizons. Even when I first met her, the idea of her joining a club with anyone but Lily would have seemed utterly laughable. That'd explain how busy you've been. Enjoying it? It's really interesting. As always, Hanako is far from being talkative. Some of the things never change, like war. And it seems that Hanako's personality is one of them. She'll likely always be one to shy away from being overly social. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Warned by the sound of the crockery against the table, as Lily gently places my drink in front of me, I thank her and take a long sip. Hanako and Lily are attending to their own, and Akira is quaffing a mug of some strong-smelling black coffee. You're a lucky bastard, Hisao. Huh? I can't help but grimacing at her teasing smile, still visible around the edges of the mug pressed to her lips. Seeing my sister in her pajamas, there's a lot of men out there who'd like to be where you are. Just give it a few hours, there'll be a lot of men who'd like to be where I am in. There's a lot more than that of her. Not that I'd admit it. Akira. Hey, I'm just teasing. She leans over to me as much as she can and whispers a sly grin written on her face. And Hanako too, you perv. You dirty boy. Oh wow, I think that's a new Akira sprite. I don't think I've seen that one before. It's really good. Hey, it was her idea. We both look over to her face now turned to the ground, and her hands fidgeting in her lap of her nightgown. If it's Hisao, I don't mind. Oh wow, we're getting into this H scene right away. This could be a bad... I know Hanako's altogether too innocent to bother reading too much into such a thing, but the expression Akira directs at me is positively stormy. Akira, please? Get off my man, bitch. Ooh. I'm sorry, I was just taking a delicious drink of water. It seems Lily can sense Akira's sudden change in aura just as well as I, even without seeing it for herself. Akira slowly looks away from me, like an attack dog leashed by its owner in the nick of time. I breathe a sigh of relief. I can't think of a more appropriate time to try to change topics than now. If you don't mind asking, Akira, what do you do for a living? I've never seen you out of that suit. Thinking about what to do with yourself after school's over, eh? I'm a lawyer. For the most part. I work in the legal department of the Japanese branch of our family's company. The most boring possible answer, I suppose. Law's a pretty dry topic to most people. Kinda. Oi, you're not supposed to agree. Lily gives an amused giggle while holding her teacup and saucer, Hanako quickly joining her. This friendly atmosphere between everyone is something I'd missed while Lily and Akira were on their trip. While the dealings I had with Hanako didn't help, I think just not having Lily around changed the mood a bit. It's nice to be back. I've missed you, Hisao. And you too, Hanako. Same goes for the both of us. I'm guessing your classmates were happy to see you back. In a matter of speaking, yes. Because they're all blind. Oh my god, Hisao. Akira's amused snorts shows she's well aware of Lily's attitude towards such figures of speech. I'd imagine she'd have to be, given how long they've been together. Did you have fun in Scotland? For a moment I wonder why she's asking it, having been quite a while since they came back. But then I remember everything that's happened. We've simply not had time to look back. What with exams and our Hokkaido trip. Lily's face suddenly goes distant for a moment, and the fact that Akira's first reaction is to look over to her sister doesn't escape me. Nonetheless, she quickly finds herself. It was nice. We hadn't met our family in such a long time, so it was a wonderful reunion. Yeah, I guess that's right. Their house being beachside was the best part, though. From her dismissive tone, I get the feeling Akira doesn't like her family as much as Lily does. You only like that? because you finally had time to play around. Just because I'm the better swimmer. I don't take after the athletic side of the family, that's all. Well, you can take heart in the fact that you got the height genes, at least. And the bust genes. That's not really the kind of thing to say around others. Lily pretends to scold Akira. She does so with an unmistakably slightly cheeky grin on her face. I doubt Akira really minds that, judging from her nonchalant expression. Well, I don't either. Hanako's looking down and blushing furiously beside me. So, 3 out of 4 people are cool with talking about Lily's boobs. Nice. The sisters' antics aside, their parents really do lead a bourgeoisie lifestyle. I wonder if the bourgeoisie is comes from the Borgias, you know, like the people who used to be the Pope. They were super evil. They all like had weird stuff going on, and they were also evil. Logan, you're not supposed. It seems utterly divorced from the life that Lily and Akira have lived until now. I suppose practicality must have made the decision for them. Reading is hard. To come from such a wealthy and well-connected lineage only adds to the almost noble air Lily seems to have, though it's a small wonder why none of it seems to have rubbed off onto Akira. They really are as little alike as siblings could be. Their only similarity seems to be their shared confidence, which can be both endearing and a headache at times. I like it. Most of the night continues much the same, with Hanako eventually leaving the Satao sisters and I to ourselves as she heads back to her dorm for a rest. For a while, only the barely audible sound from Lily's teacup and saucer can occasionally be heard as she slowly drinks, the silence strained as Lily and I wait for the elephant in the room to be addressed. So, Lily dutifully puts her cup down, giving her sister her undivided attention. With Lily and I on one side of the low table and Akira at the other, this almost feels like a judge passing down a verdict. I hear that you two are going out now. I glance sideways at Lily to confirm her as the source of Akira's knowledge. She gives a gentle nod to Akira, which I mirror in affirmation. Deciding that this is the proper time and place to do so, and Akira being the closest figure to a parent Lily's had for much of her life, I bowed deeply with my hands on the floor before me, and my head very nearly the same. I'll take good care of your sister, Akira. I promise you. See? He's a lovely young gentleman. She must have heard my voice coming from a lower position than usual. I slowly bring myself up, my eyes tentatively looking to Akira from under my brow. To tell the truth, I very much doubt my suited judge will raise any objections. That's actually a pretty good sentence. She's very definitely the type to make her disapproval with others well known, something that lends a measure of respect in my eyes. The old-fashioned kind, huh? Well, he's the kind of person I guess you'd go for. I don't really have a problem with it, and I wish you two the best. Even if I didn't like it, I couldn't really do anything anyway. I offer a nod of appreciation to her as Lily gives a small sigh of relief, likely more out of duty than any actual belief Akira might have any problems with us being together. I do wonder, though, how's the rest of the family taking it, particularly the part residing at Yamaku? Have you told her? Smiles turn to grimaces as Akira's grin turns downright evilly. I think it's a new face, I don't know. Those closest to know how to twist the knife best, after all. Putting up with it may be the best term for the situation. Don't you agree, Hisao? Yeah, that sounds about right. She's being reasonable about it. Good to hear. That girl can be a handful at the best times. We sent a few messages back and forth from during and just after the trip, and she was already busting my chops for seeing my boyfriend when we came back. After leaving Hideaki for so long, she really does care for the little guy. I cast my mind back to Shizune's odd reaction after telling her about our relationship, but decide not to bring it up. It's no doubt simply born out of their mutual antipathy, and Akira's comments only back that up. Well then, that's settled. Gotta get to work early tomorrow, so I'd better be off. She rises from the table with a grunt, her hand on her knee to push herself up. I just noticed Akira's eyes lingering on Lily for a couple seconds before turning away as she begins to take her leave. After she walks out the door, she stops and looks thoughtfully before turning to us one last time. Oh, yeah, I almost forgot to tell you. Use protection. Every time. You hear that? You hear that? Use it! Wow, Akira. Good job being a role model. I gag violently on the tea in my mouth. Contrary to my own, Lily's composure holds perfectly as she seems entirely unfazed. I'm kind of impressed. We are. Don't worry. Atta girl. See us. And with that, she turns and strides up the door, a hand held high as she disappears into the darkened hallway, closing the door behind her. The most reaction I can muster is flopping forwards onto the table, completely drained of energy and truly exhausted by her. Lily's ability to hold her own against that suited devil is something I admire. She really is incredibly blunt, like a hammer to the knees. I don't think I'll ever be able to keep up with your sister's energy. As I feel Lily's soft hand coming to rest on my own, I roll my head to the side to see her gently smiling. For a long time, we simply sit beside each other silently. Given her unquestionably unusual height, she is pretty much exactly as tall as I am. Given a couple of centimeters higher, if anything. Like this, she appears even taller. The feeling of her pale, soft hand against mine is a pleasant one, as is the sight of her thin silken pajamas she wears, showing her curves and collarbone. Yeah, the collarbone. Well, you do get on well, even if you say that. I guess. You know, you two are a lot more alike than I first thought when I met you. That's a good thing I quickly stopped you from going after her, isn't it? Nah. Girl, you know I like a little refination. Can't just be going out there chewing on cane sugar. You gotta get that stuff refined. That being said, if you've never had a like bamboo cane sugar, it's fun. Try it once. It's like chewing on sugary wood. Though she jokes about it, my assessment of my inability to keep up with Akira either physically or mentally was quite earnest. Oh no. Dang it. Dang it, I stepped on one of my cords. It's alright, we fixed it. Though she jokes about it, blah blah blah. Lily's slow-paced and ladylike, almost motherly nature is perhaps the single thing that helped me most in my first weeks at Yamaku. Come to think of it, wait, since when were we using protection? As I give a curious look to my side, Lily's cheeks puff out as she huffs at me. Unlike you, I remembered. The packet is in the cupboard next to the sink. So I'm not the only one of us that takes a pill. And that's a good line. In hindsight, I feel rather thoughtless for not remembering at all and leaving it to Lily. That being said, you have to take those things for like a couple months before they kick in. So she's been either taking it proactively, or she had us in her sights. Well, no, she did have us in her sights. We know that. Looking over to the cupboard, she mentions I notice again the knee-high piles of books around us that were here the other times I visited. For the most part, they're lined up against the wall, and to give a little more room around the table. Why don't you get a bookshelf for your books? It's odd to see books just piled around, especially given that your room is so neat and orderly otherwise. They're easier to find this way. I know exactly which pile each book is in. Wouldn't you still know that after putting each set on a different shelf? That may be, but she's not immune to bouts of laziness after all. You have so many of them. It's kind of a shame we can't share our book sets despite both of us reading so much. She gives a short giggle. Come to think of it, why do you order your books through Yuko? I imagine there'd be plenty of sites you could order books in Braille from. Oh wait. Yeah, I was doing that in the wrong voice. Whatever. In Braille from, especially in English Braille. There are a lot of text-to-speech programs too. She turns her head slightly away from me, which strikes me as somewhat surprising. I'm just not all that good with computers. I'm alright with typewriters and braillers, but that's about it. Her tone almost makes me chuckle. She's a prideful person, so admitting something like that must be difficult. So Lily's the low-tech kind of person. Given her old-fashioned personality, it's not really a stunning surprise. I wouldn't be worried about it. A lot of people aren't that good with them. He says, playing a visual novel. Wait, what? So it's not that unusual. That unusual. Now she's even more depressed. It feels like I'm twisting the knife rather than healing her wounds. With a bit of squirming, I shuffle my way closer to her, tentatively putting one hand around her waist to hug her. I'm still not really used to this kind of physical affection, but Lily seems to like it. What? Ooh. Ooh. Saucy. Lily smiles as she turns to face me, a kiss being the reward for giving in to her. She draws me in, brushing my upper lip with hers before pressing against both. This way, every one of my senses is filled with her. The barely perceptible scent of her hair, her taste as her tongue fleetingly touches mine, the tenderness of her lips, the image of her filling my mind, the total silence apart from our faint breath. We may have kissed before, but even this kiss is more of a simple affection than anything. It's still a new, pleasant sensation. Judging from her vivid blush as she pulls back, it's obvious she feels the same as I do, even if we're entirely alone. It feels a little embarrassing to open up to each other this much. If we take everything day by day, I think that would be for the best. Small steps, right? Yeah, just small steps. We have plenty of time together, even after the school year is over. As long as we move together, I think everything will work out okay. Neither of us is going anywhere soon, after all. For now, I'm just thankful for this small moment we can spend together. That's really sweet. It's really sweet. I stand unmoving in front of the door of the nurse's office for what feels like a dozen minutes or so. It's not like I had never entered the small beige room before, nor is it because of any feeling of childlike anxiety over the visit. Maybe it's because the nurse's office is akin to a confessional. Dear Father, for I have sinned. It's been 30 days since my last prescription. Enough of that goof. An admission that my body is flawed. The knowledge that such a fleeting fact is kept entirely confidential between the nurse and I hardly lessens the feeling. Remembering that the bell to signal the end of lunch will sound soon, I give a sigh and open the door. The burden will stay with me just this while longer. Well now, if it isn't Nakai, good to see you. Or bad, I guess, considering that I'm a nurse. He gives a small laugh, amused at his own little joke. I find his humor lacking and somewhat off, but the fact that he can still make light of a situation is perhaps comforting, or at least distracting. His brief episode of entertainment is over. He claps his hands together and gets down to business. To defeat the Huns. I take a seat as he gestures for me to do so. I wish the classrooms had seats this comfortable. I can feel my mind watering as my eyes quickly scan the room, distracted by all the small changes since I last came. Alrighty, so what brings you here? I haven't seen you often, so I assume your health's been good so far? Well, mostly. I see. The smile drops as I trail off. I feel slightly guilty about it. It's these moments that I can't rationally call myself normal that make me so reluctant to see the nurse. They're an admission that I'm different from everyone else. While I was on a trip during the long weekend, I had a few problems with my heart. He hums very seriously and nods as he does so. Urging me to go on. I think it was it was as I was walking a fairly long distance. I think the right term for it is a heart flutter. I suddenly went weak at the knees and fell almost like I was having a small heart attack. But it passed in about half a minute. Even afterward, I felt fatigued and nauseous. Not good. Not good at all. That was how many days ago exactly? Did you do anything unusual aside from exerting yourself before the episode? Were you taking your medication properly? The nurse switches from awkward jokester to serious health professional mode, rattling off questions, making notes, and calling up stuff on his computer. I tell him about forgetting to take my pills that morning and the preceding evening. It was a stupid thing to do, but I can't change anything about it now except answer honestly and bite the bullet. His seriousness involves a frown, and the talk evolves into an instant checkup. I finish buttoning up my shirt and again motion to take a seat in front of the nurse. Is this the first heart problem you've had since coming to Yamaku? I've had short pains in my chest before, just a couple of times, but there were more discomfort than anything like this. He leans back in his chair, briefly resembling a white coat Poirot, as he mulls over the mysterious case of the heart flutter. Moving his lips from side to side, it shows that he's thinking. His non-existent mustache wiggling, he eventually comes to a conclusion. Well, you survived it. That's always on the plus side. I blink at this one, then notice nurse wearing his gotcha face. It's actually somewhat reassuring. I don't think he would crack jokes if things were really serious, so I keep silent and take my lumps. I'll have to talk with your doctor, but right now I suspect it's simply due to physical exertion. Have you been keeping up with regular light exercise like I directed you to? I make sure to walk a reasonable amount every day. It's usually to work up a bit of a sweat, but then again, I'm not really as fit as I used to be. That should be enough, then. The main thing to keep in mind is to do regular low-stress exercise, not short bursts of sprinting and such. I understand. Since leaving the hospital, I've been a lot more focused on my studies, partly to take my mind off not being able to do more physical things. It's good to hear you're coping well. Sudden lifestyle changes can be hard at the best of times, so I'm pleased to hear that you sound like you have everything in order. Almost everything, that is. Nevertheless, I want to keep a close eye on you for a while, just for observation's sake. Just make sure things aren't going downhill, you understand. That's something I really didn't want to hear, especially since coming to Yamaku. All I've wanted to do is live a normal life, as normal a life as possible. Observation was one of those words that I came to hate most during the hospital stay, for so long as I felt if I could have just walked straight out the hospital doors, if not for that observation the doctors wanted so dearly. Sure, should I come in more often? He checks the calendar next to his computer, which seems to inflict on him a nasty case of furrowed brow. You know, that can be contagious. He spins back towards me after that. The summer holidays are a bit of a pain, considering the timing. I'll check with your doctor and try to get a better handle on the situation and see how he wants to proceed. But I think you should just take things slowly and carefully for now. What you're describing doesn't immediately sound like a recurring event, but it won't hurt to slow down a bit for a while, just to make sure. What should I do for today? He looks over my shoulder at the clock hanging over the door. I never noticed if I hadn't followed his gaze. It's nearly time for school to be over, so you might as well just leave early. He gives me a sly wink, making sure that I understand that he's doing me a favor. Well, nurse's orders. Thanks. That's what I'm here for, after all. I know you might not want to hear this, but you can't ignore your condition now. Don't hesitate to see me if you have any further problems, or if you just have anything you want to ask. Bye. He spins around and gets back to typing on the computer in front of him. I suppose I'll just read before waiting for Lily by the gate, considering I don't have much else to do. Even as I leave, his words are echo in my mind. My condition isn't as limiting as many of the others here in Yamaku, and I don't want to burden Lily with thinking about it. If I just live my life normally and avoid any short knocks, I should be okay. I won't let my condition rule me. Lily comes into view after the bells heralding the end of the school day ring out. She says farewell to a fair number of her classmates, headed to in the other direction. Before beginning her weekly trip to the convenience store. Ooh. Afternoon, Lily. Have you tried water? It's good. The immediate warm smile and relaxed demeanor she assumes upon noticing my presence are unexpectedly welcome. Hello, Hisao. Good afternoon to you too. She hesitates for a second, but eventually deigns to tilt her face and close her eyes. My lips meet her with a measure of slight trepidation before we move off hand in hand. The fact that we're so close in height is somewhat useful at times. Let me just tell you, being a tall guy, that's kind of lame. It's not as easy to just randomly kiss your significant other when there's a huge height difference. And there's always a huge height difference for me. There being no need for either of us to turn our heads upwards, or nor downwards in order to meet the others. Yeah, I need to get a step stool some days. It doesn't take much time to leave the noise of the other students far behind us, the tapping of Lily's cane in her free hand, the only sound to be heard. Silence, blissful silence, is all that greets us while we slowly walk in the setting sun's light. I think I'm coming to really like this town. The huge, green, hilly expanse, the trees everywhere, the somewhat rustic-looking buildings. So you've come to appreciate the tranquility of it as well? I think so. I came from a metropolitan city near Tokyo, so the quiet of this town has really alienated me when I first arrived. After a while, it became really nice, though. I think I prefer it to the hustle and bustle of my own city now. While I preferred the quiet of a small rural town even when I first arrived, I suppose I had the advantage of growing up in a quiet area before I came. Hanako said the surroundings are very pretty too. Lily may say such a thing quite easily, but each time she mentions how often others describe sights around her as beautiful or pretty, I feel a little put off. I notice her expression becoming one of anticipation for some question or another. She always had a good sense for when somebody's saying something that's on their mind, so I may as well speak up. I was kind of wondering how to put this. Do you ever regret that you can't see things for yourself? It's just something I've been thinking about. She thinks carefully for a long time. Do you ever regret that you can't hear people whispering off on the other side of a room? I can only speak for myself, but the fact that I can't see is the only way I've experienced life. Just as I cannot do something you can't do something I'm capable of. The fact that the world is made for those who are sighted can be a pain sometimes, but there are many, many people who suffer much more than I because of the way the world is. That does make sense, but still, it feels kind of bad to describe something that you can't experience to you. She tilts her head quizzically as if I'd said something that makes very little sense at all. But I can experience it. You said yourself that you like this area because of the way surroundings are. I like this area for the very same reason. Thanks to the fact that this is a small rustic town surrounded by trees, it gives me some peace and quiet from the din at school and the bustle, not to mention the smells of the city. I suppose it would also be much like home she shared with Akira as well. Her outlook on it seems pretty sensible. I'm not surprised that she's got much better handle on her particular condition than I do on mine. Just like how her coming from a location somewhat similar to Yamaku's surroundings led her become more acclimated in a shorter time, being born blind affected her stance by her own admission. I should have stopped being so annoyed with myself over it, but I can't shake the feeling that I've depended on Lily far too much, given the circumstances most have to deal with in Yamaku. That makes a lot of sense. You're pretty good at explaining things, as always. Come to think of it, where's Hanako anyway? She was with us for lunch. It seems she's busy studying, the exams are far from over, and she says she wants to do better this year than the last. While I admire her work ethic, she's been really trying to give us a lot of room alone recently. She's that type of person, I think. The kind that puts others' needs above her own at every chance. She's a sweet girl, even though so much has hurt her in the past. I don't know. I feel like it's only now, when she's less close to me than ever, that she's truly finding herself. It was thanks to you that she began to become more confident, after all, not me. I take my hand from hers and gently place it on her head. The important thing is that you were there for her. I can't even imagine what she'd be like without having found someone like you. That much became obvious while you were in Scotland. We're all still friends, so we've just got to have faith in her. I think she'll become a good person. And that much is thanks to you being there for her when she most needed it, just as you were there for me. It makes me feel a bit childish when you sound so wise. Well, I try. Are you doing anything on the weekend by any chance? Nothing that comes to mind. Why? How about a date on Sunday? It'd be nice to have something to do besides exam preparation. Countering my rapidly beating heart, she simply smiles and nods. That would be lovely. Where would you like to go? Her face suddenly changes to one of disapproval. You can't do that, Hisao. That's cheating. Do what? A gentleman should never ask a lady where to have a date. Oh, this is a new thing I haven't ever heard of. Her smile quickly comes back, assuring me that she's far from serious. Don't worry about it. I'll think about a place where we could go. I'll leave it to you then. I promise to decide on the next date though. With our plans for the weekend made, the rest of the walk down the hill continues in silence. The prospect of that lasting at any length of time, however, is shattered as I catch the sight of a familiar figure waiting for us, her hand held high. Yo! Thank you. Please come again. The change in temperature as I step outside from the convenience store sends a chill up my spine. It feels like summer's starting to wind down. Looking to my side, the same feeling seems to affect Lily as well, though unlike me, she doesn't manage to hide the fact. Something I didn't realize at first was how physically delicate she is compared to the likes of Hanako. Even if I had to describe her, I'd say she kinda looks like she reminds me of a China doll. Akira walks up behind her and gives her a couple of hard pats on the shoulder, much to the Lily's consternation. For a moment, she looks envious of my status as an only child, as I am of their close relationship. That's sweet. Guys, stay safe. Have fun. And, gosh, this one's a hard one. Can't really remember what we did. Make sure to study for your exams. I want you to get good grades, after all. One of those things is more important than the others. Bye!